One, and we are back. Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
We are in it.
All right. Well,
All right, so
Lux.
I'll bring us back in with the next topic. So we had a lot of things going on in SoCal. I think just it's been like what a couple weeks now since some of the big earthquakes that went rattling through, and we had some discussion that I thought was pretty interesting and appropriate to bring up for this particular podcast. So I'll drop the link in the chat right now, and we'll put it in the description for you guys, or I'll put a comment on the YouTube. But essentially, community leader Zan was saying that, in light of the frequent earthquakes we've been having, I think it's important to be aware of what to do in case we have a big one during an event. The last thing we want is a bunch of people panicking, even if we all know the obvious things we're supposed to do. So we want to have a broader discussion on safety at events. What should be the tournament organizer's responsibility? What should be the attendees' responsibility? Especially with current events that have been going on. It's the weekend of, July 21st. We just had a major in New York go down at Defend the North, and reports are coming out that actually one of the competitors passed away from heat stroke. So, we kind of want to have a broader discussion on what players can do, what tournament organizers can do, and some, better common sense, better practices that we can put on moving forward to avoid any sort of tragedy.
Um, I guess I can recall a time, and I think Sean was there too, and even TLTC can definitely also attest. There was one Arcadian I remember at Fire and Dice where it was so hot that like TLTC had to leave the venue because it was like it was because he was like in danger of getting a heat stroke, and like they had an AC unit, it wasn't working. It was like, not to put Fire and Dice down, they did the best that they can to like. They were even telling people like, here's some water. I remember they brought in fans. They were doing a lot to make sure like, hey, like if you guys need to leave the venue for a second, feel free. We'll hold your match. They did a lot to handle on their part. But TLC had a really rough time himself. Even me, dude. Like it was hard to play my sets with so much heat and with so many people in the room. It was really hard. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I don't know what happened at Defender North. I mean, it sounds like it was a big venue, and for them not to have AC. I was looking at Twitter, and like apparently like they were having issues bringing water in. Eventually, the security guards weren't really caring about water. They were just like, hey, it's hot. We should just let these people bring water in. I think one of the things we touched upon in one of the recent podcasts was transparency. And honestly, being transparent with the community is always a great thing. I think that this situation could have been handled better with however the TOs presented, like, hey, the AC broke. Hey, like, this happened or that. I really don't know what happened at Defender North. I've kind of been busy all day myself from seeing it happen. But, like, honestly, I just feel like transparency and a code of conduct and also warning labels. Like, honestly, one of my biggest fears is, like, I work in a skyrise building in downtown LA, okay? And one of my biggest fears is, lo and behold, the big one hits that everybody's been talking about at one point or another. And I am stuck in a skyrise building, and that is the end. That is the end of my life. But for everybody else below and at a local or a tournament, like hats in the building and on the third floor. I worry about the competitors because if a big one hits, what are they gonna do? Like what's the procedure here? Because we're not used to it, and I feel like that having discussions like this helps. The question is like, how do we go about it the right way? Like I think I'm going to name somebody and I'm going to go ahead and not say any names. I'm not going to say any people. I'm going to give you a scenario in which a certain organization left and they were upset because of the prices of water. They were upset because they were charging basically so much for water, especially with summer on the horizon. And they were profiting off water to an extreme extent that the organization was not happy about it. That was one of their concerns. And they did concern that, people should be bringing in water. This is a heat wave. And not only that, your venue, unfortunately, does not have AC. Unfortunately, is basically a warehouse. And they have not fixed their venue enough to where they can say it's comfortably air conditioned, it's comfortably enough for anybody, and it's comfortably enough to justify a price for this outrageous price of water, which is like about the same price as Disneyland. And they were upset about it, and therefore this organization left. I'm not going to say any names. I'm probably going to be like, oh yeah, you might know. I don't. Just for our sake. That's a concern. And they left for that reason. So I feel like whatever happened at Defender North, they should have try to argue with the venue, and I get that people have their things at the MSM, and you're like, we can't bring in outside food. Well, at least they have free water. Like that's one thing MSM has. That's why I think the new MSM venue a lot of people are enjoying, because it's got AC for sure. No matter what, it's air controlled indefinitely. Not only that, there's free water provided by the venue. And if you do want to get food, unfortunately, you can't bring in outside food, but the venue does provide its own food at a reasonable price, because it's a hotel. They're not going to overcharge you for like something, but they're going to give you like at least the price you would expect at a hotel. But at least water is free and it's air controlled. And whatever happens. Yeah, go ahead, Lux. I've said enough.
Like,
I said enough.
Even chiming in, like, in the example, because I'm familiar with what you're talking about, this hypothetical example. I think as a community, there should be some expectation on the part of the tournament organizers, just in the context when you're in contract negotiations with a venue. Then during the redlining process with for a contract, you got to be able to put in, our people need to be able to bring in outside water, period.
Yeah.
Or it should be a deal. In the same way, if the venue doesn't have tables and chairs or power or something like that, just given what's been going on as a community, there are things like that a tournament organizer kind of has to really go to bat for the community, because once that contract's signed and the ink is dry, there's not a whole lot of things that a tournament organizer can do. But I would make the argument that it's not fair to put that onus responsibility like on the players, as much as we want, as much as they should protest if they're not being given the opportunity to create a safe event in a hot space with water.
Yeah.
A lot of that needs to be resolved before the event is even booked in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw like I saw Max. By the way, Max is like personal favorite caster of mine. I saw Max, and I think it was Hangman who they did like top 8. Dude, they were sweating.
Mm-hmm.
They were sweating. But you could.
They were listening.
Yeah, dude, they looked
like,
extra sweaty, bro. Like there was one time, like I remember Charles got on the mic, and everybody's concern was like, "Damn, dude, Korean is sweating." Dude, like Max looked like he had been drenched in nothing but his own sweat for the past, like I don't know how, as long as the top 8 was going.
I mean, he even mentioned it while he was. Water that I spilled on my shirt is dry. This is just sweat on my body now. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, the one thing I did like this was my favorite event last year, and I hope it comes out like 2020, but like, I think the thing that I liked about SCR last year was like, Valle was very transparent about security, water, and the area. He's like, hey guys, this is in the Inland Empire, it's Ontario, letting you know, and it's going to be hot, but the place is air conditioned, we have security measures. There is no water, but there is water provided by the venue for free. That was I remember like going up to the mic. I think you and me, Lux, we went up to the mic. Mm-hmm. Afterward, I was thirsty. Valle personally showed me where the water fountain was. And every top player was around the water. So I was a little bit mesmerized. But like, this is something that he himself, like a community figurehead, showed the people like, hey, there is water, there's free. Let me show you guys. Don't worry about it. Like, you guys can bring your order, but the venue is providing water. You don't have to pay for it. I mean, Bahamut even said if there's one thing Smashers love, it's free water, but it's free water to wipe away all the salt they get. But it's important. It's like the lifeblood of people. And what I want to hear from you, Sean, is like, you're a person who goes to events. You've been to panels. I know you did ShineCon like a little while back, right? Like, what's your hot take on all this? Like, how would you feel going to a venue that's like, yo, man, the AC broke and there's no water?
I'm a dangerous person to ask that, just because I'm someone who I don't give a lot of thought to that kind of thing, and it's good. I think it's really good that it's being brought up, because people would complain about the heat at MSM, and I agreed that it was uncomfortable, but it never reached that point where I never really thought about it in terms of is people's well-being and health in jeopardy? Like I've always only ever thought of it as like, oh, it's so hot in here, it sucks. This is really uncomfortable, but not from like a danger type of aspect. So I think that just speaks to the importance of bringing it up, because like, a lot of TOs don't give that kind. It's not something we really think about until we are forced to observe it. Like nobody ever practices what to do in a situation of like a fire or a robbery, and they don't think to practice it because it hasn't happened. And they're like, oh, well, it's not going to happen to me. I'm not a person who that happens to. You don't know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my hot take is that I think it's smart that they are trying to be more cognizant of potential heat exhaustion, heat stroke. People who are in the no pun intended heat of the moment at a Smash tournament may be too busy thinking about like studying their next opponent or thinking about their recent loss or taking care of themselves outside of staying hydrated may not be the highest thing on their minds. Now, the problem arises. So point A that I'm saying is it's necessary. I 100% agree that it is necessary because I don't trust myself to remember that, and I don't trust most Smash players to put in the effort and the time to remember that. The problem comes about bringing it up in an organic way because no matter how professional these tournaments become, no matter how big Smash as a franchise and as a community grows, it has always, as most fighting games have been, it has always been rooted in this kind of friendly fight club atmosphere. You know what I mean? And what I mean is that the people who attend are there for a particular focus, and it tends to be very casual, very competitive, very relaxed, very high school teenagery in a way. And I say that in regards to there are things that are on our minds and things that are not. And a lot of the older adult responsibilities, like staying hydrated and watching the temperature outside, a lot of those most serious adult considerations just don't cross through our minds. It's not something that we give importance to. So, how do we go about introducing this to these tournaments and not necessarily forcing, although I think it is, but getting attendees to take this more seriously when the established environment would make something like this come across as really cheesy, really corny, really mom, I know, okay, thank you, dad. I feel like a lot of players would respond not very seriously to it. They'd just be like, okay, yeah, heat stroke. All right, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a great question, and I mean, it goes back to like the comments that you just made and the Lux made about, ultimately it's something that people aren't really thinking about until the worst thing happens. And just as a quick reminder to those of you in the chat who aren't aware, this weekend Defend the North just happened, and there was an incident where an attendee actually passed away due to heat stroke. The event venue did not have air conditioning. People weren't allowed to bring their own water in. There wasn't sufficient water being provided at the venue, and all of these things together can really cause the worst. And moving forward, I'm sure the tournament organizers of Defend the North and many other tournament organizers will be thinking about this sort of thing seriously, because it literally, we could have lost a life, or in this case, we did lose a life. And so, I want to kind of also say, we need to be prepared for any kind of situation, not just heat even, because there's, in California we live, this is a place where we get a lot of earthquakes, and we brought that up earlier.
Yeah.
And the latest earthquake, somewhat big earthquake happened during Anime Expo, and this was during a time where everyone was lining up outside of the convention center. And Anime Expo is an event that brings in so many people from around the world who, are not California natives, are not people who live and are equipped to deal with a catastrophe such as an earthquake. And, it's a similar environment at Smash tournaments or just any kind of tournament, really, where you're bringing in people from all over the place who, they're equipped to deal with certain things, but not these other things. And so how do we bridge that gap of information to really have everyone be prepared? And obviously the TOs need to do everything that they need to do, whether it's have water provided at the venue, make sure that AC is there. One big thing is for in terms of big crowds is I think tournament organizers really need to start putting more thought into floor planning, because it's people kind of just come in and they throw tables in there and they put setups on there and it's just all right, have at it. But there needs to be more thought put into the optimization of the layout of everything, because you can fit more monitors a certain way, and there's a better flow of movement, like foot traffic in the venue, if you have a good floor plan, and also, you know, a good like exit route in case of a catastrophe.
Yeah, we're like so fortunate. Just really quick, because I want to hear what Lux has to say. Like, I know he has his history and stuff too, but like we're fortunate enough, and not everybody else is. This is it sounds like a glorification of it, but like we're fortunate enough that like when we do have like a saga or a major at like at a 2GG event, like the floor plan is pretty open. Like there'll be the two main streams, like chairs here, chairs here, chairs there, and then the two big doors are always open no matter what. And then of course, like now they've taken the process of like hiring guards with guard cards, right, and proper bag checks and all that stuff. Because if you guys may or may not have missed it, like we had an incident of I think a few months ago where like there was a shootout at an event, and
Yeah, in Florida, was it Miami or Jacksonville? It was
yeah,
Jacksonville,
and
right? Yeah.
my condolences goes out to those affected. But the biggest problem for me when that really hit me and that hit me in my thought process was like, this could happen. I mean, setting up Hat and all that stuff. Like, I don't want that to happen at Hat. I don't want that to happen anywhere. MSM, WNF, like, there's a lot of safety things like there's that we're now as we're coming more towards the age of esports, as it's pretty much a transcending to that age, because like we're literally heading there. There's a lot of safety precautions that I feel like we do and do not take. And so far, we're moving in the right direction. Like I said, like Valle himself, like he has, security at SCR. We have guards with guard cards at like, bigger events. But when it comes down to like that general safety of not only natural disasters, but disasters from people, man, are we like, it's a scary topic. It is indeed a scary topic. I want to hear what you have to say, Lex.
Like just as a general concept, we, as I was mentioning, a discussion on not just the player responsibilities, but the tournament organizer responsibility. And I think one of the things that tournament organizers really need to start to consider outside of the, just the generally running of a tournament, but there's always this pressure to try to add more attendees to your event, whether it's to cut prices, to bring people in, and just the tier list system for PGR is done by the amount of attendees. And I wonder if it's a situation where the incentivization process is encouraging this overstacking of people into a venue. I think there needs to be some level of discipline put on by a tournament organizer, in terms of crowd control. If they have a venue that says it has a capacity of 300 people, but usually those capacities are done for, standing room crowd, doesn't take into consideration the huge amounts of infrastructure that a Smash tournament needs in order to be successful. You might be realistically looking at, instead of 300 people, 150, 200 people in the room where it's safe, and anything more than that, it starts becoming either a fire hazard or, in the case of, God forbid, an active shooter situation, it's too many people to try to safely evacuate, and just a huge target overall. So I think we're at a point, and it's a good point, because when tragedy happens, the best thing that we can do is make the tragedy mean something and spur the community on towards something positive. So we have an opportunity for the tournament organizers to kind of sit back and really think about what the end goal is, and whether, if they're stacking in 50 people for $5 more of venue fee per person, is $250 worth jeopardizing the lives of everybody. I don't think it is, and that's something that people have to grapple with as tournament organizers. But on the player side too, a lot of it comes down to common sense and just kind of using your brain come a situation. If there's an earthquake,
don't
duck and
run out.
cover.
Yeah, duck and cover. Don't
Don't
rush out.
panic.
Yeah, don't panic.
If there's a fire, evacuate in an orderly manner. If there's an active shooter, there's the run, hide, fight protocol that people should follow. And to Sean's point, I agree with him. It seems to be that there's a general, small but consistent movement by tournament organizers to really push forward policies that are positive and will, quite frankly, save lives if it comes to it. But on the player side, there kind of seems to be almost a willing ignorance to the topic, and they don't really think about, when they get to a venue, okay, if
I
things
hate
go
to
down.
say it.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead and finish.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, Sean.
I hate to say it, but in thinking about it, there's one solution that is it's minimal effort on both sides, but would still cover the venue's ass, and that would be to implement some sort of basically in order to register for the tournament, players at some point would have to sign either digitally or whatever or agree to. No different than I'm trying to think of a good example. Like anytime that you load up a game, it's saying by playing this game or by accessing this website, you agree to the website's terms of service. If you
Yeah.
disagree, don't use this website. What's playing mentally is like if you sign up through 2GG before one of the boxes you click is I read and agree to 2GG's rules for player conduct or something like that. All they have to do is code in and include another tick box that says I have read and agree to the I'm just making up a name here, the
emergency protocol.
Emergency protocol, and player health referendum or whatever, and it hyperlinks to a big document that talks about, here are the risks of things that maybe happened and what you're expected to do at this time, and so players who want to sign up, whether or not they actually read it, did click a box saying, I have read and agree to, here's what I should be expected to do in the case of this emergency. I understand that temperatures may be very hot and that I'm responsible for monitoring myself and staying hydrated. Just by adding that one box, if players click it, it's completely minimal effort. They can take the time to read through it if they want, and by clicking it, the venue is now free of fault because the players have said, I have read and agreed to this.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious to hear because
Good idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Stride's like taking in mental notes. Like, all right, hold up, can't wait to tell the team this when I get back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but what's your thought, dude? Like you've been a part of the team for like quite some time. So like,
So basically, after the whole shooting thing happened, the protocol for security, so than ever before, immediate action towards that happening.
you sound like hold up, you cut off like really big time, bro.
So, saying after that shooting happened, pretty much immediately had to like set up security for tournaments and like set up bag check and all that stuff. Crazy enough, like that. This is a thing that wasn't actually like a thing before. Don't do that. Really confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a thing that happened, and now I guess like need to have safety protocols this time for like earthquake insurance.
I mean, like,
Happened, I guess.
I mean, from my not my expertise, like I guess my knowledge, so to say, is like we're fortunate enough that some of our venues do have like I will not name the venue, but there was an event that I really liked that we were at, and I think me, Edmund, were there. We were there for an event at SoCal Smash League, like when we were in downtown LA, dude. I'll never forget because I remember you got the. Okay, this is actually a funny story. You got the matcha lemonade, but you got me the hot matcha, and then I drank it, and I was like, oh damn, I should have drank this hot matcha because now I'm warming up.
I feel like a spicy matcha is just a Bloody Mary.
it was like a matcha latte. That's what I had. That's what I had, the matcha latte. I remember you brought me a matcha latte. I remember like you told, yeah, you had the matcha latte. You brought me a matcha latte, and I was like, oh, dude, I want to try what you're having. And I remember you told me like the Damaris, she introduced you to the matcha lemonade.
I've had a muddy matcha once. It was 2 weeks ago. It was exactly as you described, a matcha latte with espresso, and I pooped 6 times in 2 hours. Like. That is a dangerous drink, sir.
Cleansing power.
I liked it. I really did. But I just remember like it was a hot matcha. Yeah, it was delicious. But I just remember like the venue did not have great central air. It did not.
Yeah, that place was like.
But I love the venue though. Like that was my problem. It was like I really loved the venue we were at for like this event for SoCal Smash League Ultimate 1. The first one like we did in downtown LA. I remember. And like I told like James, like, yo man, like I could see like a local being here, like hopefully like one day, like I really like this venue. But he told me, he's like, the big problem is like the central air. And if we have, do you know how many people we get for MSM, for HAT, for WNF? Like that's the problem, is that we can, as much as you like it and we like it, we can't put people in here because this venue does not provide what we need for players. So we're lucky enough that like when it comes to like the heat, like 2GG does think about that. But in general, like I can't speak for every other venue, because like sometimes every other venue doesn't have that luxury of like central air conditioning or free water and all that stuff.
In that case,
it's
they should
unfortunate.
have a cap of entrance. If
Yeah.
they know that if we fit all these people for everyone all around, they should just like 100 people when they know they don't have air.
And then it goes
Like,
back to what
yeah.
Lux said though.
Yeah.
Like sometimes some of these TOs and these events, they're so like interested in like we want to have like 100 people show up to our venue, but they don't think about the general safety of like, dude, we have like 100 people. It's hot. This venue isn't that big. Like that does become an overwhelming lack of concern, and it does like bring up something to like. I don't know who's part of it. I really don't know, because that's my scary part. It's like people are like, "Hey, Vance, do you know who the panelists are for the PR?" I was like, "I don't know." Do you know who the panelists are for the safety code and conduct? I don't know. Maybe Lux. I don't know.
I'm not on it actually.
Yeah, see, I don't.
Take
See,
it
that's
on my
that's.
hand.
I don't know.
I don't think that information is like readily available, but it's not like secret either. Like I know who
I know.
the panelists are for both of them. But just speaking of caps, we are reaching our upper limit of this, our upper time limit of this topic. So we're gonna cut to a break. I just want to say, despite this being such a somber topic, that I'm seeing a lot of discussion in the chat about it, which means this is something that needs to be talked about, and I appreciate everyone who has suggested and added, their opinion onto how to make our events much safer. Definitely go beyond just typing it in the chat. Tell your TOs like the stuff that you guys are saying in the chat. It's really great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
And hopefully after today, like, we're gonna start seeing more efforts to like understand, like, hey man, this venue is cool and all, but it doesn't have that actual cool air. It doesn't have that water, and that's the one concern that I feel like sometimes the venues just. They need to negotiate, like, hey man, if you're gonna sell water, that's fine, but sell it for $1 because these people need water. Like, it can get really hot in here with, especially Evo. Like, I mean, it's in a big room. Luckily, there's big AC, but like, we need to like actually start negotiating properly, like you said, before the pen touches the paper. Like water, air conditioning, all these concerns, earthquakes, natural disasters, unnatural disasters, unfortunately, are taken into consideration, because while we do want our events to have PGR, how can we care about the community when the community is literally out there in fear of dying to a heat stroke, losing to dehydration, so many factors that we haven't even like thought about that are now being brought to our doorstep. We need to really like come together as a whole and think about that, and for the love of God, for me, change our rule set.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we're going to go on our break, and then we'll come right back and talk about our last topic. So don't go too far.